She whispered, "It hurts." Discover the incredible moment that transformed their lives forever. Maria sat in her parked car, the weight of her exhaustion pressing down on her like a thick fog. The weathered Lincoln High building loomed behind her, a fortress of challenges. She stared at her steering wheel, the metallic scent mingling with the faint smell of stale coffee and too many late nights. Just moments ago, a raw honesty had filled her classroom. Sam, a quiet boy battling a mountain of his own insecurities, had barely managed to push out those words, and they echoed in her mind, igniting a torrent of fear within her. What if she couldn't save him or all of them? This wasn't just a job to Maria, it was her lifeline, her passion. Every day, she fought to ignite curiosity in students who felt trapped in a cycle of obscurity and oppression. Yet deep down, she was drowning in her own struggles, mounting medical bills, a nagging health condition threatening to derail the only career that mattered to her, and the bitter knowledge that systemic injustices were pulling her beloved science program apart. Those unknown details, the whispers of her own pain, were tightly woven into the fabric of her classroom, but she had learned to keep them hidden behind her compassionate facade. Today, she had gritted her teeth through a staff meeting that felt like a funeral for education. With budget cuts looming like storm clouds, proposals floated around like dread-filled specters, science program cuts, layoffs, and the fear of losing the few resources that sparked hope in her students. Her heart raced and clenched. The incident with Sam had cracked a door open, but she was caught. Could she even protect her students while wrestling with her own vulnerabilities? A momentary reprieve came with a phone call from Mr. Thompson, her once beloved professor, now a fragile figure grappling with the shadows of his own challenges. Hearing his trembling voice brought back a flood of memories. His words rose in her mind, urging courage, recalling his own victories over adversity. As they talked, Maria felt an ember of resilience igniting within her. She hadn't forgotten her dreams. Yet how could she dare to brave them while wrapped in this cloak of uncertainty? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Growing tension wrapped around her heart as Maria returned to her classroom, ignited by Sam's quiet confession. Each lesson became an act of defiance against a system she loathed, yet the specter of her health and mounting pressures clawed at her resolve. As the daily grind wore on, doubt began to creep through the cracks. How long could she withstand the weight of despair, her own and that of her students? Just as hope began to dwindle, she glanced toward Sam, still wrestling with his emotions, lost among the ruins of self-worth. Maria felt the chasm between her aspirations and her reality widen, pulling her down. Time was slipping away, and she needed to decide whether to fight for her students' dreams or retreat into the shadows of her own despair. The room buzzed with unasked questions, and the underlying anguish hung heavy in the air, making her feel alive yet so painfully trapped. Each breath she took echoed the question, could she summon the strength to fight for them, knowing full well her own survival was at stake? The clock ticked loudly, reminders of an uncertain future. The stakes had never been higher, and she felt the weight of the world pressing down, uncertainty closing in around her like a vice. In the following days, Maria found herself at a crossroads, every moment steeped in the tension of her dual struggle. The echo of Sam's words haunted her during sleepless nights, plunging her deeper into the role of their advocate and protector. Each morning brought fresh dread but also a flicker of determination. She couldn't afford to give in to despair, not for herself, nor for Sam, or the other students depending on her. At the chalkboard, Maria felt the weight of her mission more profoundly than ever. The lessons she prepared felt like lifebuoys thrown into turbulent waters. She designed experiments that would engage her class, not just with facts, but with the wonder of discovery. Yet each triumphant moment was fleeting, overshadowed by pressing realities. The principal had made it clear, without strong scores and visible progress, cuts were inevitable. The shadows of impending layoffs loomed over Lincoln High, and Maria's heart sank when she overheard other teachers discussing their exit plans. Some had already begun looking for jobs elsewhere, fleeing what they perceived as a sinking ship. The thought of losing her colleagues, her lifelines in the fight, was unbearable. Yet letting herself consider such an outcome sent her spiraling into anxiety. During one particularly stressful afternoon, Maria stumbled upon an old science fair project in the storeroom. The vibrant display reminded her of her love for teaching and ignited a spark in her. She realized she had a choice, to wither in fear or to exemplify the very resilience she wished to instill in her students. How could she inspire them if she didn't showcase her own strength? With renewed purpose, she decided to organize a mini-science fair in her class, showcasing not only scientific principles but the students' own stories of struggle and triumph. As she began laying plans, a quiet determination filled her. Maria carved out time to work with Sam after school, helping him with his project. Their collaboration blossomed into a space where vulnerability was intertwined with ambition. In those moments, she saw the raw potential in him, a reflection of the same potential waiting to be unearthed in her own spirit. Their deepening connection reignited her belief that positive change was possible, even against the odds, but the specter of her health loomed larger each day. Fatigue gnawed at her focus, muting the vibrant ideas she sought to cultivate. As she witnessed students more engaged by the possibility of the science fair, the physical toll of her health was nearly unbearable. One afternoon, Maria felt a wave of dizziness that sent her reeling. She nearly collapsed in front of her students. Panic gripped her. She knew she needed to confront her health situation, to possibly seek support, but the fear of judgment held her back. Every decision seemed marred by uncertainty. The necessity of protecting her students from the harsh realities of their environment was at odds with her own well-being. Could she expect them to rise to their full potential when she herself felt like she was barely treading water? As the date of the fair approached, Maria felt both exhilaration and dread. Would the effort come to fruition, or merely highlight the cracks in her carefully constructed facade? The night before the event, she found herself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, staring deep into her own eyes. "I can't let them down," she whispered, her resolve trembling in the quiet. The fair was as much a test for her students as it was for her an opportunity to reveal their capabilities, but also a reflection of her own. How would she handle the pressure on that day? The weight of potential failure loomed, but a single thought fueled her courage: this was not just about maintaining her job. It was about embracing the very vulnerability she sought to shield her students from. Could this be the moment she transformed both their lives and her own? It was almost dawn when she braced for the imminent challenge, the thrill of uncertainty tingling beneath her skin. Tomorrow, she would step into the spotlight not merely as a teacher, but as a beacon of resilience, whether she was prepared or not. The time had come to face not just the students' fears, but her own. The day of the science fair dawned with a muted sun, casting a dim light over Lincoln High, but Maria felt an internal flame rising. She arrived early, clutching papers filled with notes and diagrams, a tingling combination of excitement and dread electrifying her every step. The empty hallways echoed with the potential of discovery, and she sought to harness it for her and her students. As the clock neared the event start time, Maria's heart began to race. Students trickled in, armed with their projects, their faces a mix of nerves and anticipation. She focused on Sam as he entered, his eyes shining with pride. They had put in countless hours together, and she could see the flicker of belief in his gaze, a potent reminder of what they had accomplished as a team. "Maria, what if no one comes to see our projects?" he asked, genuine worry lining his voice. She knelt to meet his eyes, remembering the uncertainty that had once clouded her own thoughts. "Sam, remember why we're doing this. It's our chance to show what we can do. The audience is just icing on the cake." Despite the tremor of doubt inside her, she managed a smile, hoping it would anchor them both. As the first few families entered the gym, Maria felt a surge of adrenaline. The projects, each a manifestation of her students' creativity and hard work, came alive amid chatter and laughter. For a brief moment, the impending layoffs and her health concerns faded into the background. Here, In this room, she was not just a teacher grappling with the world, she was a guide witnessing her students embrace the joy of discovery. She maneuvered between tables, sparking discussion about the students' experiments. She lost herself in their enthusiasm, in their potential, and each story shared felt like a small victory. However, as she walked to Sam's table, fatigue washed over her like a wave, dimming the bright colors of the day. She leaned against the table, reassessing her state. "Are you okay, Miss Maria?" Sam looked concerned, his achievement contrasting sharply with her own sense of impending collapse. The heat of the moment threatened to overwhelm her, and for the first time that day, Maria allowed a moment of vulnerability to slip through the cracks. "I'm just a bit tired, Sam." "You're doing great, let us keep this energy up." As she said those words, she understood they were as much for herself as they were for him. The hours passed, filled with presentations that displayed not just science, but revelations of resilience and ingenuity. Maria listened as the students articulated scientific principles with newfound confidence, and her heart swelled at their growth. Yet behind the joy lay the persistent ache of her reality. She was leading them, but could barely lead herself through her mounting fatigue. By the end of the event, just as Maria began to feel the weight of everything she had ignored, something unexpected happened. The principal approached her, the firmness of leadership etched on his face. "Maria, this was fantastic. The engagement was off the charts. I'm looking into how we can build upon this momentum." His words cut through the haze, and for a moment, hope surged within her. As he walked away, Maria felt an overwhelming urge to scream or cry or maybe both. Instead, she was thrust into action with Sam, discussing their favorite moments from the fair. But deep within, the tension of her health and the burden of her responsibilities loomed larger than before. Hours later, as the last audience member trickled out, Maria felt a strange mix of elation and despair. She had fostered resilience in her students, yet remained shackled by her own vulnerabilities. The accolades offered a temporary reprieve, but the real fight for her health loomed ahead, and she knew it could no longer be ignored. Standing in the empty gym, she took a deep breath, grappling with the weight of her next decision. Would she allow herself to seek the help she desperately needed, confront the judgments that haunted her, and be vulnerable in a different way? The realization lingered at the fringes of her mind. This was only the beginning of a new road toward both personal and professional recovery. The success of the fair was just a stepping stone, and she felt its reverberations urging her to face an even deeper challenge. What lay beneath the surface of her own struggle that needed uncovering? She could not tread water any longer. A new chapter awaited, one where she would have to dive beneath the surface and confront her own deepest fears. Maria stood in the deserted gym, the walls reverberating with the echoes of laughter and applause, now replaced by an unsettling silence. The trophies for Best Project and other accolades remained untouched on the table, a reminder of triumph that felt hollow against her gnawing anxiety. She had always been a source of strength for others, but now, the weight of her own struggles pressed down much harder than any victory could lift. As she gathered her belongings, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the glass of the trophy case. The determination in her eyes was dulled by fatigue. It was time to confront the weariness she had carried for too long, not just as a teacher but as an individual. She had taken pride in advocating for her students' growth while silently neglecting her own needs. The notion gripped her, a revelation she could no longer ignore. After returning home, the familiar sanctuary of her living room enveloped her, yet it felt more like a cage than a retreat. On the wall hung photographs of her students during previous science fairs, wide smiles depicting innocent hope, each face a reminder of why she had dedicated her life to teaching. The realization hit her: they were reflections of herself, the little girl who had once seen education as an escape from her circumstances. But who was there now to guide Maria? She sank into the couch, a complicated mixture of pride for her students and disappointment in herself swirling inside her. Her phone buzzed with notifications, colleagues congratulating her for the event. But the accolades felt like paper shadows, they offered no real substance. She found herself staring at a message from Sam: "Thanks for believing in us, Maria. You're the best." How could she accept that praise from him when she felt so unworthy? Amidst the compliments, loneliness settled deep within. Everyone saw her as the unshakable guide but failed to glimpse the cracks in her facade. Yet, a spark ignited within her. This was a turning point. Time to be brave in a different manner. She dug into her work bag and flipped through her papers until she found a medical pamphlet she had taken weeks earlier during a health presentation at school. It spoke about mental wellness and offered resources for educators grappling with stress and anxiety. Instinctively, she had tucked it away, avoiding the confrontation of her own needs. But there it was, a lifeline she had unknowingly craved. With trembling fingers, Maria dialed the number. Her heart raced as the phone rang, each tone echoing her fear, but it was also liberating. The choice to seek help was tethered tightly to the vulnerability she had been avoiding. The receptionist answered, and Maria's voice quivered as she asked about scheduling an appointment. A small step, yet monumental in its significance. As she hung up, the gravity of her choice began to sink in. She felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. The road ahead would not be easy. The idea of sharing her burdens with a stranger felt daunting. Could she truly dismantle the beliefs that tethered her to self-doubt? But like the projects her students had presented, breakthroughs weren't spontaneous. They required dedication, patience, and a willingness to unravel the complex web of feelings this journey had intertwined in her. The realization that seeking help was an act of strength, not weakness, began to fill her with warmth. The notion was slowly transforming from an ominous shadow into a symbol of potential. What she had accomplished for her students would soon reflect upon her own life as well. As Maria drifted into sleep that night, she understood the stark choice before her. The imminent appointment symbolized a fork in the road, marking the beginning of true introspection. Ready or not, she would have to face her fears. What anxiety lingered in the corners of her mind? What barriers stood in her way? The following day, Maria woke with a renewed sense of clarity. The journey had only just begun, but she was ready to embark on an expedition toward self-discovery. Little did she know, the upcoming sessions would not only challenge her perceptions but also reveal unforeseen strengths she had long buried, a transformation awaiting to take place within her soul. The question remained, could she reconcile the teacher with the human suffering beneath? The answer lingered just out of reach, a tantalizing challenge she could not ignore. Maria paced anxiously in her apartment as she considered the upcoming therapy session. The quiet stillness of her surroundings seemed to amplify her racing thoughts, each one a flash of doubt. What if the therapist couldn't help her? What if sharing her struggles felt too raw, too heavy? Yet she pressed her fingers against her temples, trying to ease the tension. The therapist's office was a simple, inviting space filled with warm colors and soft furnishings. Maria took a deep breath as she walked through the door, determined to embrace this opportunity. She sat down in the plush chair, and the therapist, a calm woman with kind eyes, introduced herself. It was a gentle start, but as they began to discuss Maria's feelings, a surge of anxiety washed over her. "Tell me what brings you here," the therapist prompted gently. Maria's heart drummed in her chest as she struggled to voice her emotions, the words forming a barricade in her throat. After what felt like an eternity, she finally found her voice. "I feel like I lost track of who I am. I'm a teacher, but I don't know how to take care of myself anymore." The therapist nodded, encouraging her to continue. Each word Maria articulated peeled off layers of emotional weight, revealing the anxieties that had nested in her mind for years. As she shared her story of exhaustion, disappointment, and the pressure of expectations, Maria noticed a subtle shift within herself. The act of sharing her burdens felt like an unshackling, a release she had long craved. With each session following, Maria confronted issues that had festered beneath the surface. She explored her tendency to equate her worth with her achievements, confronting the insidious whispers of inadequacy that clung to her. "You're a fraud," they taunted. "You failed your students by failing yourself." But these revelations led to profound realizations as well. Sessions shifted her perspective, challenging her to recognize moments of pride in her professional achievements without allowing them to define her existence. The therapist encouraged her to embrace vulnerability as a means to growth, presenting the concept of self-compassion as a tool rather than a shortcoming. More than once, Maria was confronted with uncomfortable truths about her past. She had embodied the role of the stoic, unwavering mentor, sacrificing her own emotional well-being. Examining her childhood dreams soon intertwined with her current reality. Education had once been a refuge, but her journey had morphed into a relentless pursuit of perfection. Slowly, she began to integrate small changes into her life. In between sessions, Maria started embracing downtime, allowing herself to read novels she had longed to pick up again or take evening walks. Each step away from her students' expectations tested her resolve but also instilled a growing sense of self-worth. One afternoon, she found herself in front of a group of colleagues, discussing her experiences with mental health, something she had previously shunned. Flashes of vulnerability coursed through her as she spoke, sharing her journey and emphasizing the importance of seeking help. Their supportive glances fueled her courage, reigniting the spark within her. She was both teacher and learner, and this newfound wisdom was a lesson worth sharing. As she stepped away from the podium, her heart raced not with fear but with a potent sense of authenticity. Perhaps her struggles were not just burdens but powerful teachings that could inspire resilience in her students. They were not alone in their quests for identity and acceptance. Fueled with newfound courage, a question lingered in Maria's mind: could this journey of self-discovery not only transform her but also echo positively in her classroom? The possibility was intoxicating yet daunting, paving the way for her next revelation. With each passing day, a new understanding began to bloom within her, beckoning her to explore the edges of her fears further. What would it mean to let go of perfection entirely? The anticipation of that decision buzzed in her thoughts, the answer lurking just beyond reach, a revelation waiting to unveil itself at the next daunting turn of the path. Maria sank into the quiet solitude of her apartment, feeling the gentle weight of the week settling like a soft blanket around her shoulders. The dim light of the evening filtered through the blinds, casting stripes on the floor that felt like the bars of a cage. It was Friday night, and instead of pushing herself to complete lesson plans or grade papers, she allowed herself to sit in stillness. Today marked the end of a long week filled with insightful sessions. Yet, instead of relief, a strange mix of expectation and anxiety bubbled within her. She couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental loomed just beyond her grasp. It was as if a whisper echoed through her mind: let go. Letting go had become a recurring theme in her therapy, a delicate concept she was learning to embrace. As she pondered those words, Maria felt both liberated and terrified. The routine of teaching had anchored her in predictability, a structure that formed her identity. But now, the thought of dismantling those boundaries shook her confidence. Would her students even understand her evolutionary journey? Would they appreciate a teacher who wasn't steeped in the perfectionistic ideals they had come to expect? With a deep, shaky breath, Maria sat down at her kitchen table, opening her notebook to reflect on the progress she had made. She had begun journaling not just about her week but about her hopes, fears, and the lessons she had gleaned through therapy. The blank pages stared back at her, inviting, almost taunting. She picked up her pen, letting the ink spill out her thoughts. Today, I realized how often I clung to the mask of the ideal teacher, she wrote. But who defined that ideal? Was it my students, my colleagues, or the voice of my childhood dreams? A tremor of realization coursed through her. The answer felt closer than she had imagined. In that moment, a radical shift emerged. Maria recognized that authenticity could be more impactful than mastery. The students she adored weren't searching for perfection, they were looking for connection. If she could peel back the layers of her own struggles and show them that vulnerability was a strength, perhaps she could inspire them to express their own insecurities. The following Monday, she stood before her class, heart pounding in rhythm with her racing thoughts. As her students settled in, she took a bold step. Today, I want to share something personal, she began, tracing her fingers along the desk. Their gazes were curious yet focused. I've been on a journey to understand my own struggles with feeling inadequate. She felt the weight of her confession, vulnerable yet powerful. As she spoke, the room was enveloped in a silence that felt reverent. Maria shared the insights she had gleaned from her therapist, the importance of accepting imperfection, and the exhilarating yet scary process of self-discovery. Their eyes widened, and she saw a spark ignite within them, the realization that they weren't alone. One student bravely raised her hand, tears glistening in her eyes. "I thought I was the only one. I feel like I'm never good enough, no matter how hard I try." Maria's heart ached at the shared struggle. "You're not alone. We all have our moments of doubt." The room erupted in murmurs of agreement and confessions alike, an unanticipated wave of honesty washing over them. In that moment, she felt the thrill of transformational connection, a realization that her journey could weave directly into the tapestry of her students' lives. What she once feared as her weakness became her greatest teaching opportunity. As the bell rang, wrapping up the class, Maria collected her materials, a blend of excitement and anxiety swirling in her chest. The newfound sense of bravery churned within her, yet she recognized the daunting work ahead. It wasn't just about sharing, it was about sustaining this authentic approach in a society conditioned to hide flaws. Would she continue to allow her students, her newfound allies, to witness her growth? The thought of standing firm in her evolving identity loomed large, accompanied by thrill and trepidation. That night, Maria lay awake, contemplating her next steps. The boundaries of her previous self were beginning to fracture, revealing better paths ahead. A realization struck her: it was time to confront the rigid expectations that had bound her for far too long. What would it truly mean to embrace vulnerability as her power? The question lingered like a haunting melody in the air, promising both freedom and challenge as the next chapter of her journey awaited. The clarity of the following morning's sunlight flooded Maria's kitchen, illuminating the chaos of papers strewn across her table. As she sipped her coffee, she sensed an undercurrent of excitement mingled with unease. Today marked the first time she would apply her commitment to authenticity with her students, an exhilarating prospect that felt overwhelming. After the previous class, the warm feedback from her students had resonated deeply within her. Their willingness to share their own vulnerabilities had shaken her traditional view of education, transforming the teacher-student dynamic into something infinitely richer. It awakened questions that sent shivers down her spine. How could she maintain this authenticity? What if her vulnerability invited judgment instead of connection? Determined not to retreat into her old habits, Maria spent the morning crafting a lesson that encouraged her students to explore their own values. The focus shifted away from grades and standardized tests, centered instead on personal experiences and beliefs. She made notes to introduce creative exercises, such as group discussions and reflective writing, where students could uncover their individual strengths. Before the bell rang, she arranged a cozy setup with pillows on the floor and encouraged her students to feel at ease. When they settled in, she began to share a poem about the beauty found in imperfections. She watched as expressions of curiosity and contemplation spread across their faces. It was as if they sensed a shift. This was not just another day of routine. Today, she started with a smile, we're going to focus on what makes us unique, including our struggles. The room buzzed with tentative energy, students glancing at one another, unsure of how to navigate this unfamiliar openness. As they dove into the discussion, Maria's heart raced. Her words felt like stepping into uncharted waters, and the thought of misstepping loomed large. Yet, she was met with a chorus of brave responses, each one unveiling layers of emotion she hadn't anticipated. A boy in the back, Jim, hesitated before speaking. "I never feel like I belong," he said, his voice gravelly. "I'm always the one left out." There was a brief silence, charged with empathy, as Maria leaned forward. "How does that make you feel in this class?" Jim's eyes flickered to the floor, and for a moment, she feared that she had pushed too far. "But then," he continued, "like I could just disappear, and no one would notice." That simple admission shattered the atmosphere. A realization swept through everyone as they exchanged glances of understanding. They were sharing not just words, but parts of their souls. "Jim, your presence is felt here," she responded, ensuring he saw her sincerity. "Each of you has your own unique story that adds to this space." The collective sigh of the classroom felt like a release of pent-up tension, echoing the intimacy blossoming among them all. As the session progressed, students took turns expressing their insecurities and dreams, and with each revelation, Maria felt more grounded in her purpose. The lesson morphed into an unfolding tapestry of stories, connecting them in unexpected ways. She became acutely aware of how her initial fear of vulnerability had transformed into a wellspring of strength, but the joy was accompanied by a gnawing hesitation. One incident remained unaddressed. The usual critics, the parents and colleagues who prided themselves on enforcing tradition, loomed over her like dark clouds threatening a storm. Later that afternoon, as she prepared to leave, an email notification blinked on her screen. It was a message from the administration, curious about her unorthodox teaching methods. "They're watching," she thought, her stomach tightening with dread. Would her newfound courage withstand scrutiny? Navigating the precarious balance between innovation and tradition was proving to be a treacherous path. Yet, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that transformative change was within reach both for her and her students. What would the administration's feedback mean for her evolving identity? Would she yield to the pressures threatening to undermine her growth? As she stood in the doorway, staring at the fading light, a question lingered in the air: was she ready to defend her new perspective, even if it meant facing opposition? Maria's heart pounded as she read the email from the administration for the third time. Unorthodox teaching methods. The phrase twisted in her mind like a double-edged sword, cutting both ways. On one hand, she felt proud that her approach was recognized as different; on the other, the implication of judgment loomed ominously. What would they want from her? A detailed account of every lesson? A justification of her methods? Sighing deeply, Maria closed her laptop and stared outside, searching for clarity in the grayness of the sky. Just yesterday, the classroom had sparkled with vulnerability, radiating connection and authenticity. Today, the specter of doubt threatened to cast a shadow over that light. Her instincts wrestled with each other. On one hand, there was the cautious educator who valued traditional paths, precise syllabi, measurable outcomes, safety in structure. But beneath that armor was a woman committed to something deeper, something real. She recalled Jim's struggle. His voice echoed like a haunting melody, like I could just disappear suddenly. Energy surged within her. Perhaps she'd have to be bold. Perhaps, she thought, it was time to engage the very people who could stifle her growth. If her methods were under scrutiny, then she needed to approach the administration, not with trepidation, but with conviction. The next morning, she donned her most professional outfit, a deep navy pencil skirt paired with a crisp white blouse that mirrored her desire for clarity. Maria rehearsed her points in the mirror before heading to school, envisioning the potential outcomes of her meeting as a kind of mental dojo. Each scenario became a punch or a kick in this sparring match of opposing views, a fight she was eager to engage. As she approached the administrator's office, she felt a surge of adrenaline washing over her. She knocked, a clear sound bouncing off the polished door. Upon entering, she greeted the principal and another member of the curriculum committee, who both wore expressions bordering on neutrality, perhaps curious or skeptical. "Good morning, Maria," the principal greeted. "We wanted to discuss some feedback regarding your lessons." "Of course," she replied, suppressing her fear behind an assertive smile. "I understand you have a few questions about my teaching methods." The committee members exchanged glances. We've noticed a shift in classroom dynamics, and while we appreciate that engagement has improved, here it comes, she thought, the fine line between concern and criticism. Some parents have expressed worries. They believe that this approach deviates from our curriculum's core expectations. Maria weighed her words carefully, summoning the strength she had found within her students. The curriculum is vital, but if we only aim for conformity, how do we help our students discover their individuality? Isn't that what education is about? Their expressions tightened, but Maria pressed on, no longer hesitating. She spoke passionately about Jim and the others, how their stories mattered and how emotional intelligence could directly enhance academic performance. She shared anecdotes from her students, her voice gaining strength with every word, wrapping around convictions she had quietly nourished through her practice. As she concluded, the room was thick with contemplative silence. Did they see her? Did they understand her vision? "What you're proposing is," the principal's gaze lingered in thought. Radical. But there are metrics to consider, Maria. She took a breath, knowing a new path stretched out before her. I'm not asking you to abandon metrics, but to allow them to coexist with empathy. Growth doesn't only occur in grades, it happens in the heart. Can we find a way to merge both? Just then, a flicker of acknowledgement crossed the principal's face, but doubt still clouded the room. As she left, Maria felt lighter yet aware of lingering skepticism. Transformation often entailed resistance, but she resolved to fight for her vision. Later that evening, she gathered her students to reflect on the meeting. Sharing the insights and reactions from the administrators opened a new avenue of dialogue. But as she witnessed their eagerness and passion in response, a new question ignited within her: what truly defined success in education? Would she be able to redefine it alongside them? This was only the beginning. Her heart raced with anticipation and a hint of dread, driven by the knowledge that her next steps could alter the course of their journey. But without the ability to navigate through the storm, would they all sink together? Maria spent the next few days in a swirl of focused energy and introspection. The meeting with the administration had ignited a fire within her, fueling a desire to challenge not only the norms of education but to reevaluate her own assumptions about what it meant to teach. Was success merely a function of grades and test scores, or could it encompass the emotional growth and resilience of her students? She pondered these questions fervently, scribbling thoughts in a weathered notebook that seemed to hold the weight of her evolving philosophy. Each evening, her classroom transformed into an arena of experimentation. Inspired by her discussions with the administration, Maria initiated an open dialogue with her students about their thoughts on learning. She introduced new projects that aligned with their interests, aiming to cultivate a deeper sense of ownership over their education. The students responded with enthusiasm, pouring their creativity into presentations that echoed their journeys and aspirations. Among them, Jim stood out. His once timid demeanor blossomed as he delved into a project exploring the intersection of art and mental health, intertwining his own experiences with those of historical figures. Maria watched, mesmerized, as he articulated his ideas with newfound confidence, the colors of his artwork vibrant against the stark white walls of the classroom. This was the purpose she had longed to fulfill, empowering her students to find their voices. Yet, despite the ebullience unfolding in the classroom, Maria felt an undercurrent of anxiety. The administration's skepticism lingered in the back of her mind like a shadow. Would her unorthodox methods truly have measurable success? Or would her innovations crumble under the weight of traditional expectations? The fear of disappointing her students brought her a sense of urgency. So, she devised a plan. One chilly Thursday morning, Maria invited the principal to observe a lesson, one that would showcase the shifts she had implemented. As the day approached, she meticulously prepared, emphasizing interactive learning. She envisioned a classroom alive with discussion, creativity, and emotional engagement, a place where students could explore their potential far beyond standardized tests. The principal arrived promptly, and an air of acute awareness enveloped Maria. Her thoughts raced. She had a chance to showcase not just her methods, but the very essence of why she taught. As she walked to the front of the classroom, she felt the eyes of her students and the scrutiny of her administration, a heart-pounding blend of exhilaration and trepidation. The lesson began with a closely knit circle, where students shared their creative projects and discussed what they had learned about themselves throughout the process. Maria marveled at the energy flowing between them, watching as Jim spoke passionately about his project, revealing layers of vulnerability that she never expected him to show. The room was electrified with connection, the magic of authentic learning unfolding before their eyes. Yet, just as the dialogue reached its peak, Maria noted the principal's shifting demeanor, his brow furrowed in contemplation. As the discussions continued, she sensed an impending critique. When the bell rang, the weight of the moment pressed down on her, and the principal's eyes met hers, filled not with the anticipated admiration but a complex mix of apprehension and concern. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, Maria," he began, the words tumbling out with careful deliberation. "But how can we justify this as learning when it doesn't directly correlate to the standards we've set?" Maria's heart sank. The confrontation she had hoped to avoid was here, yet she felt the flicker of resolve inside her. "But isn't this exactly what we should be nurturing?" She challenged softly but firmly, her narrative twisting from doubt to determination. Here, students are discovering aspects of themselves, learning the value of empathy, creativity, and collaboration. Isn't this a part of a broader education? The principal considered her words, but uncertainty clouded his response. Could they truly measure success by traditional metrics without suffocating personal growth? As the thunderous din of students leaving echoed around her, Maria stood at the crossroads of possibility and limitation, steeling herself for a pivotal confrontation. The battle between innovation and convention loomed closer, and she sensed the critical moment arriving. The faintest whisper slithered through her thoughts. What action would she take next? Would she retreat to familiar ground, tethered by convention, or would she dive deeper into this uncharted territory with her students, even if it meant stepping far outside her comfort zone? The answer awaited just beyond the horizon, a visceral choice that could redefine not only her path but that of her classroom. Maria woke up to a dim light filtering through her window, a harbinger of another day filled with challenges and possibilities. The previous day's lesson had been intense, a collision of passion and vulnerability that showed her path ahead wasn't just about teaching science, it was about embracing authentic connections and leading by example. Yet, the echoes of confrontation with the principal remained heavy in her thoughts, urging her to define her mission without fear of judgment. Sitting at her breakfast table, she reflected on the deep bond formed with her students. They were not just learning facts but unraveling their identities. Each day, Maria understood more clearly that education wasn't merely about conveying knowledge, it was about cultivating their ability to express their stories and dreams. Determined to continue her transformative approach, Maria developed a plan that would not only showcase her students' abilities but also demonstrate the tangible benefits of emotional growth in an educational context. She proposed a collaborative project that combined science, personal narratives, and community involvement, a multifaceted initiative aimed at enriching their scientific exploration while redefining measurable success. The project, aptly named Science with a Soul, encouraged students to research scientific concepts while sharing how these concepts intertwined with their lives. Days after presenting this to her class, excitement swirled in the air. Their enthusiasm was contagious. Maria could feel it spreading through the room like a warm current. They were eager to create projects that not only showcased scientific principles but also highlighted their personal stories, turning abstract data into vibrant expressions of identity. As the weeks progressed, Maria defined and refined her vision, carefully supported by her insights. She reached out to parents and the community, inviting them to join the culminating showcase of student projects. She crafted a proposal for the school administration, outlining objectives, potential outcomes, and how this innovative approach would align with educational standards. Maria was resolute. This project would not falter under scrutiny but instead stand as a living testament to what transformative education should be. When the day of the showcase arrived, the energy was palpable. Students adorned the halls with colorful displays, each project a unique intersection between scientific inquiry and personal narrative. As Maria walked through the crowded gymnasium, she felt a surge of pride swelling within her. These were stories of resilience and revelation that had far exceeded her expectations. The principal attended, his demeanor now a mixture of curiosity and respect. No longer shielded by apprehension, he engaged enthusiastically with the students. He interacted with Jim first. "What inspired your project on mental health and art?" he asked. Jim's face lit up, and Maria felt her heart soar as he articulated his concept eloquently, weaving in his own experiences and insights. The principal smiled genuinely, looking around the expanse of creativity and connection flourishing before him. When he returned to Maria later that day, there was a sincerity in his tone. "You've constructed an impressive demonstration of the potential our students have when given the opportunity to engage meaningfully with learning. I see now how this aligns with our goals." Maria felt a rush of satisfaction, a culmination of weeks' worth of their collective passion and hard work. It wasn't merely a victory over bureaucracy, it was empowerment both for her and her students. This was the turning point she had been striving for, the moment everything fell into place, bridging her roles as teacher and mentor. In the days that followed, Maria took a step back and allowed herself to embrace her personal journey as much as her professional one. She scheduled her second appointment with her therapist, equipped with lessons learned from the student showcase. There was ease in recognizing that her struggles were a vital part of her narrative. Their sessions became a reflective process, incorporating insights from her experience at the school and her growth as an individual. Maria confronted the internalized pressure to be perfect, reframing her narrative around vulnerability and empathy. She learned that strength lay not only in her achievements but also in her journey in evolving truth she could now confidently share with her students. At the school, she established ongoing collaborations within her classroom, where learning transcended curriculum confines, embracing real-world issues. Moreover, she fostered a safe space of vulnerability, encouraging students to develop their authenticity. The heart of education, the echoes of her previous struggles faded slowly, replaced by an unwavering confidence she had built from within and shared with those around her. For Maria, the journey had proven that overcoming adversity was not just an individual accomplishment but also a powerful teaching tool to inspire resilience in her students. She looked forward to the next chapters of their shared journey filled with endless possibilities, knowing that real success lies in nurturing the whole person, both in and out of the classroom. This was it. Her transformation was complete, with her personal and professional identity now seamlessly woven together. Embracing this, she smiled as she stepped out into the bright morning sun. She was not just a teacher, she was a leader, one who discovered genuine fulfillment in her vulnerability, allowing others to shine while she bloomed in the warmth of their collective spirit. If this remarkable transformation ignites inspiration and drives you to embrace your own journey, now is the time to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can change your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, proving that these narratives matter and deserve to thrive. Comment below, share your reactions and theories about this empowering ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans of personal overcoming stories know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.